Hey there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're welcome to the Baby Doll Show. I'm delighted to have you having lunch with me. Every Tuesday we gather here as usual. He's your fertility and lifestyle coach. Today we're doing Team Natural. We are life. Tell your yard people. We're discussing everything fertility, lifestyle, love, care, affection, lifestyle, and wellness. If you can hear me very well, say hello, click the wow face, and let me know where you're joining from. Hashtag first timer if this is the first time you're joining us, and hashtag your name and your location, because I would like to know where you're joining from. I'll be in the comment section to answer your questions and to also engage with you. My name is Chika Samuels. I'm the fertility and lifestyle coach, and you're welcome to the Baby Doll Show. Okay, so let me know that you can hear me very well and you can see me very well. I am so excited about what we're going to be talking about today. We started a few weeks ago on the series, the fail-proof fertile marriage. And what better time to talk about it? Something that has been coming up, a lot post-COVID, because a lot of couples are not traveling away from each other as they used to. Now they are stuck with each other, and things that didn't used to be an issue are now becoming issues. And also, a lot of research and studies have shown that the divorce rate has really spiked up, and that was what initiated this series, the fail-proof fertile marriage. Is there such a thing? Yes, there is. So we started the series with the first episode titled "The 7 Myth Traps About a Happy Marriage." And first, let me tell you why you must listen to me. I am over a decade married to the same man with joy. This is, this is my show. I'm not gonna lie to you. So if I'm to say yes again, I'm gonna yes him up again. I'm a fertility and lifestyle coach, so daily I'm dealing with the family units across the world, and he is a relationship expert. So in this series is dedicated to him because I picked his brain a lot on the facts and stories that I'm going to be sharing with you on this series. So today we're discussing 7 ways to divorce-proof your marriage while trying for a child. We started last week. Okay, and we're going to continue. We started last week and we're discussing the tips. Okay, we talked about how not to conceive the quadruplets. Remember the quadruplets? We talked about criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. If you missed the first episode or the one before it, do catch up. Click the link on the comment section and catch up. So today we are talking about tip number 3, which is resisting flooding. What is flooding? Flooding means when you are faced with that situation with your spouse where the negativity or comes in guise of criticism or contempt, and it's so overwhelming that you suddenly just go shell-shocked, to feel so defenseless about this sniper attack that you just want to do anything to avoid a replay. And it feels like the more you feel hoarded with this your spouse's criticism or contempt, the more hyper vigilant you are, looking out for clues on when your spouse is about to blow again. And all you can think about is how to protect yourself from this turbulence that your spouse is giving you, like onslaught causes. So the what we see a lot of time is that most couples that have these issues, they now disengage emotionally from the relationship. Okay, and we talked about Mark and Rita, remember, in last week's episode. You do catch up if you missed it. Then look at another husband, Paul, who was quite, stonewalled when the husband, Amara, I call her Annie, gets negative in a conversation that, depletes what stonewallers always feel. So Amara, in this case, was explaining at our session that when she gets mad, that's because he expects the husband to step in and try to make things better. But when the husband just stops talking, she feels like he doesn't care anymore. Like my opinion and the feeling is absolutely bearing on you, and that is not the way the marriage should be. So Paul would say things like, what I'm saying is that if you really want to have a serious conversation, you have to do it without screaming. Can't you just talk normally without shouting? You start saying things that are hurtful when you shout. And Amara will be like, well, I'm hot. I have to express how I'm feeling, and when I'm hot, I'm sorry, I have to say things that I don't mean, I'm sorry, I really don't mean that, I know that you want to talk about this and all that, and you're making an effort, and I will say I'm making an effort, but you're ignoring me. Paul will be like, okay, I'll talk when you're ready to talk. We'll know. I'll talk when you stop yelling and when you're not jumping and stomping and screaming. So you see, Amara kept telling Paul how it made her feel when he shuts down, but she does not seem to hear him tell her why he is shutting down. Do you get? So he can't handle her hostility. And what we see a lot of time is that this part leads easily to divorce or people living as strangers. You see, a marriage meltdown is habitually started by, we talked about harsh startup and relentless presence of these things that we're discussing during disagreements. So although each of these factors are, alone can, predict a divorce, they usually coexist in an unhappy marriage. Okay. So tip number 4 is to pay attention to the body language. So even if, I have not heard the conversation between Mark, the Stonewaller, or his wife, Rita, I'll be able to predict their divorce simply by looking at their psychological readings. I read of a research where they monitored couples of bodily changes during a tense, discussion between couples. We saw that, just how physically distressing flooding can be. One of the most apparent, of these physical reactions is that they tested how the heart pounds and speeds. It was more than 100 beats per minute, even as high as 165. And this is in contrast with a typical heart rate for a man who is about 30 of about 75 beats, or a woman gets about 82 beats. And we're seeing above 100. So what happens is that the adrenaline kicks in, the flight or the fight response, and the blood pressure mounts up. And these changes are so dramatic that even one, partner is frequently flooded during a marital discussion, it's easy to predict that these people may start living as strangers, or worse still, divorce, at least, if these things are not managed properly. So when you see recurring episodes of flooding leading to divorce or people living as strangers, first, they signal that at least one partner feels, more severely emotionally distressed when dealing with the other partner. The second is that, physical sensations of feeling flooded, the increased heartbeats that we sweat, the sweating and so on, makes it virtually impossible to have a productive problem-solving discussion. So when your body goes to overdrive during an argument, it's responding to a very primitive alarm system that we inherited from our ancestors. So all those distressful reactions like pounding of the heart, sweating, sweating in your hands, occur because a foundational level of your body perceives that there is a current situation that is deemed dangerous. So even though we live in an age of, IVF and sperm, organ transplant and gene mapping, from an evolutionary standpoint, not so much has changed, when it comes about how humans react. So when a human is not refined as, this response to danger or perceived danger, or when maybe your spouse keeps nagging, why you never remember to put the toilet seat back, or when your heart is pounding, and every other physical stress reaction happen in the midst of a discussion with your mate. When the consequences of this becomes, disastrous, it leads to delayed fertility. Your ability to process information is reduced, meaning that it's harder to even pay attention to what the person is saying. The creative power, problem solving, goes out of the window. You are left with the most reflective or least intellectual way of responding, So you just want to either stonewall, not talk about it, or, we have misunderstanding. So any chance of resolving the issue is gone. So most likely the discussion only worsens the situation. So you see, men and women are different. They are very different in most, a huge percentage of marriages. The stonewaller, for example, oftentimes is the husband. This is not because of some lack of the man's part. Don't get me wrong. The reason lies in the caveman tale, where the females, specializes in nurturing the children, while the male specializes in, cooperative hunting. So as a nursing mother can tell you, any nursing mother will tell you that the amount of milk you produce is affected by how relaxed you feel. So which is also related to the release of this hormone, the oxytocin, in the brain. So natural selection, would favor a woman who would quickly soothe herself and just, take a chill pill after feeling stressed. Her ability to remain composed and enhance her children's success of survival by, optimizing the amount of nutrition they received is also something that can be put in check. But in the male natural selection, it's quite the opposite. For these open early hunters, or the way our fathers used to live, maintaining vigilance was a key skill for them. So for males, when the adrenaline kicks in quite readily, they do not calm down easily as you see it in women. To this day, the male cardiovascular system remains more reactive than the female and slower to even recover from stress. For example, if a man and a woman suddenly hear a very loud brief sound, like maybe a blowout, most likely his heart will beat faster than hers and stay accelerated for longer time. Yes. The same goes for the blood pressure. His own will become more elevated and stay higher, for a longer time. A psychologist at University of Alabama has found that, when about 38 male subjects were deliberately treated rudely and told to relax for about 20 minutes, their blood pressure surges and stayed elevated until they got to retaliate. But when the women faced the same treatment, they were able to calm down during that 20 minutes. Interestingly, the woman's blood pressure tends to rise again if she's pressurized into, retaliating. So since marital confrontation confrontation that, which is the thing that activates vigilance, takes a greater physical toll on the male, it is no surprise that our guys are more likely than the women, to attempt to just avoid it. It's a biological fact. So men are more easily overwhelmed by marital conflicts than their wives. They are, his gender difference in how psychologically reactive their bodies are also influencing what men and women tend to think about, when they experience marital stress. As a part of some experiments, we asked some couples in a research, study to watch themselves arguing on tape and then tell us what they were thinking when their spouses dictated that they were, flooding. Their answers suggested that men had a greater tendency to have negative thoughts that maintained their distress over time, while women were more likely to think soothing thoughts that helped them to calm down and chill. Do you get? So men generally either think about how, insulted or indigent they felt, how I'm going to get even, I can't take this anymore, what kind of nonsense, they have to go back to your parents' house, and all that. Or they think about themselves as an innocent victim of their wife's wrath and complaint. Why is she even blaming me? Which leads to defensiveness. So obviously this rule doesn't hold for, of course, every man, and every woman. But after several research that I studied, I have noted that the majority of couples that do follow these gender differences in psychological, reactions to stress, because of these changes in the similarities, most marriages, including even the happy, healthy ones, follow a comparable pattern of conflict in which, the wife, who is constitutionally able to handle stress, brings up maybe a sensitive issue, and the husband, who is not able to cope with it, will attempt to either avoid talking about it or avoid getting into the subject. He may become defensive and just stonewall, or he may even be aggressive or, contemptuous and attempt to just shut her down or silence her. So just because your marriage follows this pattern, it's not a sign that it's headed for divorce or that divorce is around the corner. In fact, you'll find examples of all four factors we have shared, even occasional flooding in stable marriages. Yes. But when the four factors tend to be, they have now taken permanent residence, when either the partner begins to feel flooded routinely and the relationship is in serious trouble. So frequently, feeling flooded leads almost inevitably to distancing yourself from your spouse. That's what we see a lot of times. Then in turn, it leads you to feeling lonely without help. The couple will end up divorced or maybe living in a dead marriage in which they just remain, maintain separate parallel lives, but they're living in the same house. If you ask them, they say they are couples, but they know they're living as strangers. They may go through, motions of togetherness, attending children's parties, hosting dinner parties, taking vacations, but emotionally, they no longer feel connected to each other and they had given up on their relationship. Okay, so we are on the fifth way to divorce-proof your marriage. Taking advantage of repair attempts is another topic I want to talk about. You see, repair attempts are efforts that the couple, either of them, make. Like, let's take a break. Can we talk about this later? To de-escalate the tension during a very touchy discussion. It's like putting on a brake so that flooding is prevented. So repair attempts saves marriages, not just because they decrease emotional tension between spouses, but also because they lower the stress level, that they also, prevent the heart from racing and making, you feel flooded or overwhelmed. So the thing is, if you're feeling flooded, you're not able to even hear verbal white flags. In unhappy marriages, what we see is that a feedback loop, develops between the 4 factors we have mentioned, and the failure of repair attempts are seen very frequently. So the more contemptuous and defensive the couple is with each other, the more flooding occurs, and the harder it is for them to even hear and respond to repair. And when repair is not heard, the contempt, the defensiveness, all 4 of them just gets heightened, making flooding more pronounced. So what makes it, what makes it also very difficult to hear the next repair attempt until they finally get to the point where one of the partner withdraws. And we can predict this, and we can say that these 2 couples are headed for the rocks. So the failure of repair attempts is an accurate marker for an unhappy future. The presence of these 4 factors we have been talking about predicts that this divorce is around the corner, or at least separation is around the corner, and it's something that needs to be given attention to. This is because some couples who go through the first 4 factors when they argue are also successful as repairing, getting the white flag. Usually in this situation, when the 4 factors are presented, but the couple's repair attempts are successful, what we have and what we see a lot of times is a stable, happy marriage. I can tell you that about 96% of the time, whether a marital discussion will resolve in a conflict after the first 3 minutes of their discussion, I can tell you I have done it lots of time without fail. In emotionally intelligent marriages, I hear a wide range of successful repair attempts, each person having their own approach. We can have maybe the woman will just be like, and the other guy will laugh, and they apologize. One person will apologize or so, they apologize and they acknowledge they're wrong. Even when off the mic, Joe, please, you're getting off the topic. All these are repair attempts that keeps discussions or keep marriages stable, because they prevent those 4 factors from moving in. So whether a repair attempt succeeds or fails has very little to do with how eloquent it is, and everything to do with the state of the marriage. One happily married couple who taught me this lesson was Hale and Judy. Because of the nature of, his research, Hale was a chemist, and also, we found out that he always had last minutes that he would not be able to get home for dinner. Although Judy knew that Hale couldn't control his hours, it was beyond his control. The dinner situation frustrated her. So when they discussed the problem, she will point out to him that she had to wait till dinner to eat late, which she didn't like. So Hale suggested that she should give him snacks to, tide over the dinner issue. And Jody snapped at him, "What do you think I've been doing all along?" And he realized that, they have been messed up, and she'll now, display maybe a significantly lack of awareness about what has gone wrong in the home, and what still maybe insult the wife's intelligence. What happens in an unhappy marriage, this could easily, something like this, very simple, it can easily be the ground for some major league, as in they will play football league on top of it. So I waited to see what happened next. Since all other evidence suggested that they were happily married, what I anticipated was that Hale would use some of those skillful repair attempts, but Hale just gave Jody a rather goofy smile, and Goofy busted out laughing, and they went on with their discussion. Hale's quick grin, the quick smile worked because their marriage was working. There was already a foundation. On the other hand, when Oga, that we talked about last week, tried to soften up Madam by chuckling, during the conversation about the housekeeping, he got nowhere. In marriages where the 4 factors we have talked about have moved in for good, even the most articulated, sensitive, well-calculated repair attempt is likely to fail. Ironically, we see more, of these repair attempts between troubled couples than between those whose marriages are actually going smoothly. The more repair attempts fail, the more these couples keep trying. It can be very obvious to hear one member, one of the couple offering one repair attempt, and the other one is not even giving it attention. So let's talk about the 6th factor. Do not rewrite history for the worse. Okay, when a relationship gets soaked in negativity, it's not only the couple's present and future together that is put at risk, their past is also in danger. When I interview couples, I usually ask about the history of their marriage. I have found over and over again that couples that are deeply entrenched in negative view of their spouse and their marriage often rewrite their past without even knowing it. When I ask them about their maybe early courtship, when they went out, their wedding, their first year together, I can predict their chances of maybe divorce or having frequent quarrels, even if I'm not prying in their private, in their current feelings. Most couples enter marriages, of course we all do, with high hopes, great expectations. In a happy marriage, couples tend to look back on their early days fondly, even if the wedding didn't go out perfectly and somebody spoiled the whole one bear, but they tend to remember the highlights instead of the low points. The same goes for each other. They remember how positive they felt earlier on, how excited they were, when they met, how much admiration they had for each other. When you hear them talk about the tough times they have had, they glorify the struggles, they have been through, drawing strength from the adversities they have weathered together. When a marriage that is not going well, on the other hand, when you hear them talk, the history gets rewritten for the worst. So she recalls that he was 30 minutes late going to this, wedding ceremony, or he focused on, all the time he spent he was talking to his best man, he was not even giving him attention, or he was just flirting with her friends. As it will seem to him, now. Another sad sign is that you find the past difficult to remember. It has become so unimportant or painful that they let it fade away. When the four factors overrun a home, even impairing the communication, the negative mushrooms to, such a degree that everything a spouse does or ever did is a recast in a negative light. But on the other hand, in a happy marriage, if the husband promises to probably say, pick up the wife, maybe laundry, but forgets it, she's likely to think, oh, maybe he's under some stress, he forgot, or he needs some sleep. He considers his relapse. He, gives him the benefit of doubt. But in an unhappy marriage, in the same circumstance, is likely to lead to, he's always inconsiderate, he's selfish. How could he forget something like that? By the same token, in a happy marriage, a loving gesture, like a wife greeting the husband with a passionate kiss at the end of a workday, is seen as a sign that the spouse is loving and considerate. In an unhappy marriage, when the same action is done, the husband will be like, what does he want now? What is she looking for? And all that. There is suspicion because, things are being read when there are no things. So let's talk about the seventh way. Don't give up too soon. You see, when a marriage gets to the point where the couple has rewritten their history, when their minds and their bodies make it virtually impossible to communicate or repair their current problems, it's almost bound to fail. Yes. They find themselves constantly on red alert because they always expect to come back. The marriage becomes a torment. The understandable result is that they withdraw from the relationship. Sometimes they're just staying together, but they're disconnected. Sometimes a couple at this end stage of the marriage will come for counseling or look for rehab or look for, therapy. On the surface, they may seem like nothing much is wrong. They don't argue. You don't see them, talking. They don't even act like they are stonewalling. They don't say much of everything. They talk calmly, distancing about their relationship and their conflicts. And inexperienced therapists could easily assume that their problem don't run shallow, don't run deep. But actually, one or both of them has already disengaged emotionally from the marriage. Some people leave a marriage literally, by divorcing, while some others, lead parallel lives while they are living together under the same roof. So whichever route, there are 4 final steps that signal that the death of a relationship, not even the arrival of a newborn, can fix it. 1, you see that the marital problems become severe. 2, talking things over seems useless. They don't even have the need to talk about it. You try to solve problems on their own. 3, they start leading parallel lives. 4, loneliness sets in. When a couple gets to this last stage, one or both of them may start an affair. But an affair is usually a symptom of a dying marriage, not the cause. The end of that marriage could have been predicted long before, the other, spouse strayed. Too often, what we see is that couples begin to seek help for their marriage after they have already hit troubled waters. The warning signs were always there, earlier on, if they had known what to actually look out for. So you can see the seeds of trouble in 1, what couples actually say to each other. 2, the prevalence of the harsh startup. Remember the harsh startup. The 4 factors that we talked about, and the unwillingness to accept influence. The failure of repair attempts. You see the psychological reactions flooding. Remember, you see the negative thoughts about their marriage when they speak. Any of these signs suggest that emotional separation, or in most cases, divorce, may only be a matter of time. But it's not over until it's over. As bleak as all this that we're talking about sounds, I'm convinced that far more marriages could be saved than currently are. When a marriage that is about to hit bottom, rock, can be revived by the right kind of help. Yes, with the right kind of help, it can be revived. That's why we're discussing this. Well-meaning therapists or coaches like me will, indulge the couples with negotiating their differences and improving their communication. At one time, I had done the same, but I started to analyze what went right in happy marriages. But after intensely studying happy marriages or happy couples for as long as I did, I now know that the key to reviving or divorce-proving a relationship is not just, how you handle disagreement, but in how they are with each other when they are not fighting. And that brings me the important topic we're going to be talking next week. We're dealing with how to become an emotionally intelligent husband. And I'm so excited that it's something that you're going to get value for. Let me know your thoughts about what we discussed today. If you have questions, please comment on the comment section, and I'll be coming to the comment section to answer your questions and to engage with you. Till we meet next Tuesday, keep living healthy and keep giving the world your best.